If you want to understand the power, creativity, and influence of black culture, you can't just look at today. You have to go back to the decade where style became a statement. Sound became a revolution, and black identity became something celebrated, loud, proud, and unstoppable. You have to go back to the 1970s. Because the 70s weren't just another decade. They were a cultural earthquake that reshaped music, fashion, TV, politics, neighborhoods, and the future of Black America. And whether you lived through that era or only know it through stories, movies, and memories passed down, one thing is universal. Black culture in the 70s didn't just influence the world, it changed it. Picture this. It's 1971, a hot Saturday afternoon. Somewhere in America, a record player is spinning a Marvin Gaye album. The kind that fills the whole house from the living room to the front porch. Kids are outside jumping rope to songs that every black neighborhood somehow knows by heart. A group of teenagers are on the sidewalk practicing the new dance they saw on Soul Train. Moms are in the kitchen prepping Sunday dinner early. And the whole neighborhood feels connected, music vibrating through homes, laughter carrying across yards, people coming together because the community wasn't just a place. It was family. That rhythm, that soul, that unity is something the 1970s held like no other time. Let's start with the sound, because music wasn't just background noise in the 70s. Music was the heartbeat of black life. This was the decade when Motown reached God-tier status. When soul music told the world exactly what it felt like to love, hurt, heal, and overcome. When funk exploded into something so bold and unapologetic, it couldn't be ignored. When disco lit up the nights and filled dance floors from LA to New York. Think about the voices that defined that era. Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, Al Green, Donny Hathaway, the Jackson 5, Earth, Wind and Fire, the OJs. These weren't just artists. These were storytellers, healers, historians, prophets. They sang about joy. They sang about pain. They sang about America. They sang about blackness in a way that wasn't coded, hidden, or softened. It was raw. It was real. It was ours. And then there was the birth of funk. James Brown didn't just perform. He detonated. Parliament Funkadelic didn't just play music. They created a universe. Funk was loud, colorful, futuristic, and black in a way that didn't ask for permission. Giant afros, platform boots, glittering costumes. All combined with bass lines so powerful they felt like they were shaking your DNA. Funk wasn't just a sound, it was a form of freedom. And on Saturday mornings across the country, black kids gathered around the TV to watch Soul Train, the most stylish, influential, culture-defining show of the decade. Don Cornelius didn't just create a TV show, he created a movement. Soul Train was the runway for black expression. It was the place where America saw our style, our music, our dances, our beauty. Afros, flare pants, soul music, disco lights, it was everything the culture was becoming. Black women in the 70s weren't just beautiful, they were revolutionary. The afro wasn't simply a hairstyle, it was a declaration. Natural hair became a symbol of pride, identity, and resistance. Black women embraced themselves with a confidence that inspired a generation. They wore bold colors, long lashes, hoop earrings, wide belts, and outfits that celebrated their curves and style. Pam Grier became a cinema icon, not just for acting, but for representing a new kind of powerful black womanhood and black men in the 70s. The confidence was unmatched. Wide collars, tailored suits, high-waisted pants, and a coolness that carried from the barbershop to the block. The 70s barbershop was more than a haircut spot, it was an institution. You didn't just come out with a fresh lineup. You came out with knowledge, advice, jokes, arguments about sports, and music, and that unmistakable smell of hair grease and aftershave. Barbershops were therapy sessions before therapy became a trend. Let's talk about TV. In the 1970s, for the first time in American history, black families saw themselves on screen in ways that felt real. Good Times showed a family navigating struggle with humor and heart. The Jeffersons represented upward mobility and pride. Sanford and Son made millions of people laugh every week. These shows were more than entertainment. They were the first mirrors Black America had in mainstream media. They showed joy, strength, humor, frustration, and everyday life from a perspective the world had never witnessed before. And speaking of humor, black comedians of the 70s changed comedy permanently. Richard Pryor redefined what stand-up could be. His sharpness, honesty, and vulnerability set a standard no one has matched since. Red Fox, Flip Wilson, Moms Madley, they were pioneers. They brought truth and laughter to stories that could only come from Black experience. Now let's step inside the home, the Black household in the 1970s. You remember the plastic couch covers. You remember the giant wooden console TV that weighed as much as a refrigerator. You remember encyclopedias lined up on the shelf because those were Google before Google. You remember the velvet paintings, the crochet blankets, the smell of incense, and the giant stereo system that was practically the centerpiece of the living room. And oh, the phone. That long, curly, wild telephone cord that stretched from the kitchen to the living room to your mama's room and back. If your mom picked up that phone while dinner was cooking, that cord was a hazard waiting to happen. But the most important room of the house was the kitchen. Black cooking in the 70s was sacred. Soul food wasn't just a meal, it was an experience, a ritual, a masterpiece. Collard greens simmering for hours. Cornbread in the cast iron. Fried chicken so perfect, the whole neighborhood could smell it. Mac and cheese that wasn't orange powder. It was real, baked, heavy, cheesy perfection. Sweet potato pies cooling by the window. And that big pot of something simmering on Sundays. You knew it was going to be a good day. And then there was the church. The Black church in the 1970s was the foundation of community life. It was a place of worship, but also a place of social gathering, healing, strength, activism, music, family. Choirs in the 70s? They sang with a power that could shake the building. Every sermon felt like a moment. Every service felt like an event. You didn't just go to church. You spent the whole day there. Morning service, choir rehearsal, afternoon programs, evening service, the ladies in big hats, the ushers with white gloves, the kids trying not to fall asleep, the organ that could raise your soul right up out of your body. Let's go outside for a moment, to the neighborhood. Because community was everything. You didn't need a texting app to find your friends. You went outside, walked to the corner, and there they were. Every block had that one older lady who watched everybody and snitched on everybody. Every neighborhood had that one house where all the kids hung out. Every street had at least one grill master who took cookouts very seriously. Speaking of cookouts, the music, the smoke, the laughter, the dominoes slamming on the table, the kids running around with popsicles, someone yelling, "Who made this potato salad?" These were the moments that defined childhood. Kids in the 70s played outside all day. Bikes with banana seats. Jump rope, double dutch, tag, jacks, marbles, water from the hose on hot days. Going inside only meant you were sick or in trouble. Outside was where life happened. And let's talk about something important, identity. Black identity in the 70s was evolving. The civil rights movement had opened doors, but the fight wasn't over. Yet the 70s brought a new kind of boldness. A pride that showed up in the music, the fashion, the books, the art, the slogans. Black is beautiful wasn't just a saying, it was a mindset. Black authors, poets, activists, musicians, and thinkers shaped a cultural renaissance. Angela Davis, Nikki Giovanni, James Baldwin, Gil Scott-Heron, Maya Angelou, their words still echo today. Black-owned businesses grew. Magazines like Ebony and Jet became cultural cornerstones. Black radio stations amplified voices that were often ignored. HBCUs thrived with new energy. Black filmmakers made movies that spoke to the people directly. The 1970s were a time when Black creativity flourished in ways the world could no longer deny. And yes, there were tough parts. Racism didn't disappear. Inequality didn't fade. Many families struggled. Many neighborhoods faced challenges. But what stands out about the 70s is how Black communities created joy, culture, and progress even when the odds were against them. Because Black culture has always been the art of turning struggle into strength, wounds into wisdom, rhythm into resilience. The 1970s were proof of that. Loud, bright, soulful proof. From Motown to funk, from Afros to bell-bottoms. From Soul Train to Good Times, from cookouts to church choirs. From neighborhood unity to national icons. From the streets to the stage to the silver screen. The 1970s shaped the blueprint for Black culture as we know it. And even today the echoes of that decade are everywhere. In fashion, in music, in slang, in art, in activism, in pride, in identity. So this video isn't just nostalgia, it's a tribute. A celebration. A reminder that the 1970s were more than a decade. They were a legacy of resilience, brilliance, and unshakable soul. If you're still watching, take a moment and reflect. What memory from the 70s shaped you? What song takes you right back? What smell, what sound, what moment reminds you of that time? Share it in the comments because your memories are part of this history too. And if you want more videos honoring Black culture across the decades, hit like, hit subscribe, and stay with us, because this journey is far from over.